Madclaw, Trident, Tribbles, Kronos, Fuzzbox, and Beelzebuddy. Thank you guys. You are a part of an amazing community that I have loved being part of from day one. So thank you for your support on Patreon and in the Discord server, where we have one of the best non-toxic gaming communities around. Hello and welcome to the monthly Meeple. I'm Philip, here as always, and on duty with me is everybody else this time. Monthly news things of note that I want to talk about really quick. From Software, the producers of games like Elden Ring, Armored Core, some other ones I didn't look too deep, but those are the games that I know about from them, buys Acquire, who is the maker of Octopath Traveler series. And I note this one because this feels like a very interesting buy and a very good buy in the midst of the video game industry going through massive layoffs. I think this is going to be a good match for both companies to really expand and do what they want to do with some different technologies at their fingertips and working together well. At least I hope. Hasbro loses $1.06 billion this year. Wizards actually made triple figures of profit, which still makes me go, how the shit do you lose that much money? I mean, I know how they lost it, but the heck? How do you shoot yourself in the foot that much that you lose $1 billion and still are in business? And then CMON signs an exclusivity deal with GameFound, taking all their crowdfunding projects and moving them to GameFound, as GameFound is not just a campaign, but a pledge manager and tool and all that stuff. So it's an all-in-one space. If you haven't used GameFound yet, they were originally built out of Awaken Realms, who produces some amazing games, but they decided they wanted to do the background work of the pledge managers and stuff like that, so they created GameFound, and then GameFound was like, why don't we just launch our own crowdfunding campaigns as well? And this last year, 2 years, they've gone really hard, and they have taken a large chunk of the pie from Kickstarter, and they are doing a lot of things really right and giving a lot of options, and they are listening to people when they say when the people tell them what they want. They are listening very well and doing that. Those are some of the big ones that I'm going to point out. There were some other ones that were interesting, but I'm not going to do that. Shane, over in his corrupted little corner, has a lot of updates about cozy games. So let's go over to Shane right now and let him go off on what's going on in the cozy corner world.
All right, thank you, Brayden. So I have all the gaming news for, 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus square root of 9 plus this many cozy games. Almost all of them, I suppose. So yeah, apparently cozy games all upgrade in February. I guess that's a rule I didn't know about. So running you through everything I'm excited about. Kinseed, the long-running, super cool, really great game from the part of the team around Fable. They actually just released one of their largest updates in the game's history, which over 5 years is pretty impressive. So if you see an influx of new YouTube videos, It's because apparently the builder update has really renovated what you can do in that game and gotten it a lot closer to the ongoing multi-generational thing they dreamed about when they first pitched it. So if you're a fan of Kinseed or have been waiting for that moment where there's enough there to really dive in, now is your time, my dudes. For those of you, kind of a nice little hidden gem, if you've played Eastward, in my opinion, one of the most underrated old school style RPGs the last couple years. They actually released a Cozy Game DLC, which you do not need the main game to have. So it's kind of an interesting take on the farming game, kind of their little spin on Stardew Valley in a post-apocalyptic world, this time without the miasma chasing you to try to kill you all the time. So a little bit more calm, and definitely worth a check out if you like the really interesting art styles. All right, Stardew 1.6 actually got an update on this today when we're filming this. Thought 1.5 would be the last update ever, and nope, ConcernedApe keeps doing this. March 19th is the tentative date for the 1.6 update, and considering how every recent Stardew update has been, I am beyond excited to fire that up for, 2, 3, 7, denominator, I don't know, another few hundred hours of my life well spent. Yeah, well spent. Much better than wasted. Those of you who've been playing Slime Rancher 2, so at least Trident and me, possibly some of you others, there's also been a major update, kind of the gadget update. This is more being able to automate things, kind of really decorate the entire island. It's less about expanding the map, but it has some really cool new functions for setting up your ranch the way you want, including automated slime defenses, or tar defenses, I guess, which is great. And if you play the game, you know how important those are when you kind of screw up the mixing and matching. Roots of Pacha, super cool caveman cozy game. I actually backed it on Patreon back in the day. For a lot of people, it's kind of been the big cozy game the last couple of years to really come out and do something different. It had the big 1.1 update back in November if you missed it. And tons of new content, more automation, more character stories, more romanceable characters, in-depth more in the biomes. Like, it took a game that was already complete and really, really good and just kept building on it via kind of the Stardew model. Like, No Place Like Home, that's one that kind of flew under the radar, but there was a major automation patch, which honestly was one of my biggest complaints about the game, was it really needed a way to automate some of the work you did, and now you can. So, yay sprinkler systems, among other things, and automatic feeding. Lens Island really flew under the radar, and I don't know how this game doesn't have more attention than it's gotten. I think Archipelago, kind of Stardew, but with lots of building too. Like, I have a 6-story wood cabin that I dive off into to get on my raft. So, like, you can super craft stuff. And it's a really unique cozy game. It has an art style and kind of an interaction that really sets it apart as something different. And I have found few video game experiences recently that are more fun than jumping on your raft and catching a storm current straight south back to an old island. So, it's expanding the world. They've been expanding the caves, the plot, the story, what you can build, and apparently there's a huge world-building update that's due any week now. So that is one I highly recommend if you don't already have it. Put it on the wish list and keep an eye out for that. If you have the game, keep an eye out for that update because that is really exciting. Another one that went under the radar, as the loud motorcycle goes by in the background, and the annoying neighbor whose car alarm goes off every time there's a motorcycle, truck, windstorm, someone breathes wrong, someone coughs in this house, someone spits on the sidewalk, bird breathes on it, squirrel drops an acorn. Of course, they would take forever to turn that off while we're filming. Are you sure it's still illegal if I smash out his windshield? I swear to God I can do it without fingerprints. Anyhow, back on track. Phil, leave that in. I don't care. That's how I feel about the situation. I Am Future, cozy apocalypse game. It was one of those that kind of slid under the radar. It's interesting. It really hits the cozy. It's a lot of fun. It goes more on the building than the farming, but you are kind of like jumping on skyscraper roofs. Like imagine if it was my time in Portia, but all those giant buildings you can't access, you're actually on top of all of those instead of on the ground level. So it's a really neat, interesting little thing. Kind of fun little game. Was not super developed when they released, but they have a major update that just came through and is really filling out what promises to be a great game. And finally, and for those of you who have been with us a while, you will know this game from the famed I Am the Coconut King YouTube video. Spirit of the Island had both a major story update and a regular game update just this past month. And last year they did a really good job of putting out an update pretty much every season. So if you haven't touched this game in a year, it has really, really developed into something much more in depth. There are so many more ways you can terraform the island. There are many more islands to visit. You can actually fight pirates now, which I think is pretty cool. And it just filled out a lot of the stuff we're kind of waiting for. So really exciting. There's 2 more major updates coming out, and the developers there have done a really great job of fulfilling their promises, not only for those of us who backed them on Patreon and Kickstarter, but who kept going to keep building out the game beyond that. And so there you are. There are 9 great cozy games that have all the updates going on, and now the car alarm is done. So with that, and with the cozy game news done, sending it back to you, Phil, you stubby-armed excuse for a non-lanky hipster orangutan.
Thank you, Shane. And I did not realize that many big games came out with updates and expansion, DLC content, and all that stuff. That's amazing. I'm right there with you in the cozy game industry. For me, I have been up to trying to figure out, if you watched the video from this past Wednesday, I've been trying to figure out storage because my Kickstarters, not my new Kickstarters, but the ones that I've been waiting on, a lot of those are starting to show up again. And I feel like I'm going to need to make a lot more room on my shelf and figure that out. With the arrival of Primal, The Awakening, and expansion content in the mail as I speak, I need to consolidate really, really hard, and I'm just not there yet. So I started work on my Marvel United storage solution, and I kind of look forward to it. I'm going to do a video on that because I feel like this will be a build a lot of people want. Because storing this game is actually kind of a problem for a lot of people. There's just so many minis and so many cards that containing it well becomes a problem, and having all the content, if that's like me and just want all the content. Braden actually got to go to a convention this weekend, or this past weekend, so that was kind of the highlight of his February. I'm going to kick it over to the business end and let Braden talk about, it was MagicCon Chicago, I do believe. So take it away, Braden.
Alrighty. Thank you very much, Phil. Much appreciated. So, my big news for this update, super shockingly, I know, based on the last one, is I just got back from MagicCon Chicago last night. Overall, there's probably a lot of different feedback running around the internet at this point. In fact, I know there is, based on social media and Reddit and other places. I'll be perfectly honest, having gone to MagicCon Vegas last year and MagicCon Chicago this year, MagicCon Chicago was fine. That's honestly the most fair review of it I can give. And to be clear, there were a lot of high points that I really enjoyed from my experience, and none of what made it fine was the fault of Wizards of the Coast. Wizards' performance was pretty well excellent across the board there. I had no issues with anything WotC fueled whatsoever. Gavin Verhey's 2 unknown events where you get to play with essentially playtest cards stickered onto Magic cards were both fantastic. I had a blast in both events, pulled a lot of cool cards. I got to play Nicol Bolas Dragon God as a commander. It was sweet. And then I got to play the mythic from Murders at Karlov Manor that's basically Sphinx's Revelation on the stick, which was also pretty rad. No complaints there. The creator corner that they had set up, where you could meet creators throughout the day, brilliant idea. I want to see that at every MagicCon going forward. It was so fun meeting lots of Magic creators that I hadn't had a chance to meet before, and just chatting with them about whatever, talking about the weekend, talking about their content, talking about Commander, talking about random topics, talking about setting up cameras. It was just a blast across the board. Too many to list. Some I knew, a lot who I didn't. I've got a lot of channels to check out based on all of the tokens and QR code cards I received throughout the weekend. Looking forward to browsing through all of that. And a huge thank you to all of them for taking the time to chat with us regular fans of the game. Super cool. I didn't have a single bad interaction with them or with the people that I played in the 2 Commander games I was able to get, or the Chaos Draft, or the events that I played in all weekend. The people are always the best part of MagicCon, and that holds true even with this one. I also got to pick up some sweet merch. There were a lot of cool vendors there, not just selling cards. I picked up a copper D20. You can probably see it, there we go, on the shelf behind me next to Sir Chonkers, next to the skull there. And also got to pick up some luxury +1/+1 counters. Super cool to get those. And I picked up a few other gewgaws I wasn't expecting to get, and was able to trade in some cards for a Wheel of Fortune. Pretty rad. Super pumped about that. However, with all of the good, there was definitely some bad mixed in there. For me, the thing that was most disappointing was how free play was handled. There was very limited space at the front of the hall, and there were a couple other areas. There was one back in the middle of the hall near where the Murders at Karlov Manor puzzle was, and there was a free play area on second floor. Now, having had my badge mailed to me, and having come in through the front of the convention center Friday and Saturday, I had no idea the free play area on the second floor existed. That was an atrocity. Communication overall on how things worked at the con was not good. Pastime staff was not terribly well informed on a lot of events going on around the hall, especially where important ones like the unknown events were going to be held. And while most were pretty good to talk to, my only negative interactions with people over the weekend were with pastime staff, and that's disappointing. I know these events are busy and stressful, I get it, but being given information from one person, being sent to a line 10 feet away, and then being told by the person at the front who's running the front of the line that I'd gone to the wrong place, not exactly cool. However, Pastimes was not the only one at fault for some of the problems with MagicCon. ReedPop does bear a significant share of that blame as well. The free play tables were round 8-player tables, so it was impossible to see what was going on in a Commander game. I don't know why they thought those were the tables to use. I don't know why they didn't have more tables set up in some of the space that they did have access to, but it was not a great decision to do that, and in all honesty, I kind of felt like the con was oversold, to be honest, based on the amount of tables and space that was set up for people to play games. Worse still, on Saturday, the on-demand passes stopped being sold for a significant chunk of time, hours, like all afternoon at very least, which impacted 2 of the people I went to the con with who were planning to jam on-demand events all day. On-demand means on-demand. In Vegas, I could go get an on-demand voucher jump in an event and not have to worry about it. But there just wasn't space to accommodate it. And again, that's on ReadPop. Finally, not that I like dumping on ReadPop, but I had an issue come up where I lost a bottle of medication. It fell out of my pocket, and I didn't notice until we were leaving the venue. I went onto the website for MagicCon to try and give them a call using the phone numbers that they had there. ReadPop didn't have anyone manning the phones during the convention, and that is an extraordinary error. Do better, ReadPop. If you're going to list phone numbers as a primary means of contact to get in touch with people about the convention, you have to be manning that during the hours people are at the con. Period. End of statement. Now, for what it's worth, I did email them that night, and they were quick to respond to me in the morning, but what likely ended up happening was the cleaning staff found the bottle in question and pitched it, which is pretty common practice. My fault for not noticing the bottle fell out of my pocket, but the inability for me to reach someone to see if someone could do a sweep when the halls were emptying out really sucked. So, kind of disappointed about that. Beyond that, I did pick up a copy of Ink and Gold for the board game shelf behind me here. So we've got a new game to add to the collection that has been very popular with us on Board Game Arena. Expect to see that on some of our Thursday streams at some point in the future, as it's one that people really seem to like within our community. And it's a great little push your luck game. Games play pretty quickly, and I really enjoy it. Like, it's fast-paced, there's a lot of tension, but it's also really easy to carry on conversation during the game, so that's really exciting too. On streaming news, we're currently playing through Phoenix Wright Trials and Tribulations, the third game in the original trilogy. That's being streamed on Tuesdays currently. We just finished up the second case as of the recording here, which is at the end of February. Looking forward to continuing through that game. This game keeps reminding me why it's my favorite in the Phoenix Wright trilogy. Ton of fun. I love Godot as a prosecutor. A+ experience so far. Highly recommend. And that pretty well covers my news for the month, so I will throw it back to you, Phil.
I would like to say that conventions being all around good and bad at the same time, because I have heard Origins in Cleveland, some of the it's not the convention itself that's the pain in the butt, it's the event organizers and the management of the building itself that becomes the problem. So kudos to Wizards for putting together a good show. Sorry it was hampered by the company hosting. Games that I've gotten on the table, I actually, behind me right now, you can see my game table. I have 20 strong on the table, and I'm really pushing myself to get into it. And it sounds bad, but I just don't necessarily sit down for a puzzle game. And this is hard. Like, I am continually getting like 2 or 3 cards in and then getting kicked out because I think my shuffles are really bad and I'm terrible at puzzles. So I get 2 or 3 cards in and get killed because my health is terrible and I've used a lot of really good dice. And the bonuses that I've got lined up just don't help me that much. I'm going to try and figure out a way to rig it up so I can play in front of a camera and you guys can see my board and all that stuff. Lots going on. My studio space always remains in flux because that's just where I live. I've been playing a lot of Triangle Strategy. I bought that when it first came out, put it down because it was kind of a disappointment because it was getting a lot of hype that this is going to be like Octopath Traveler was kind of, it's not a Final Fantasy, but it really held that feel and that grip. Like, it was kind of a spiritual successor in a way to the Final Fantasy series with the 2D animation and the great storytelling. And Triangle Strategy from the same producer it was getting hyped up as a Final Fantasy Tactics type. And then I got in there, and a lot of what I loved and made Tactics what Tactics was, to me at least, was not available in the game. And when I say that, the customization and class structure is what I really truly loved about Final Fantasy Tactics. I mean, the story and the graphics were amazing even at that time, but the class system is different and level up system is different, and it took some adjustments. So this go round, I'm actually enjoying my time with the game because I've dropped those preconceived notions that it is kind of a spiritual successor. I don't care that it wasn't going to be the same story, but that it was a spiritual successor of sorts to Final Fantasy Tactics, and it wasn't. So I've dropped that, and it's a much better game. Last month, I finished out all 7 of the Mistborn series. This month, I've been working on the Inheritance Cycle. I don't know if I'll get Murtagh and read the rest of his works, but I was just reading it because I watched a video read an article on the series. Is it as good as we remember? And so I'm going back and reading it because we have the collection. I figured, why not? It's a good, easy read if nothing else. And it's not bad, but all the painful parts are still there, and it's still just the same as it was. And board games, I'm also pushing myself to do a 365 challenge. So I'm behind on that, which 365 challenge means I get a game a day in, if not more, to kind of counterbalance not playing on certain days. I only thought of it like a couple days ago, so I'm going to have to play a lot of catch up, which I'm okay with, but I got to get her done. We're going to shift over to the old man rant and see what Callahan is upset about right now or has tickled his fancy. So, over to Callahan.
Thank you, Phil. Welcome to the Callahan portion of the Meeple Minute. Old man Callahan here, talking about whatever's on his mind. In the gaming scene, I've got Gen Con. Those tickets went live a little bit while ago, but more specifically what I'm looking to talk about is the Gen Con housing. For those of you that don't know, Gen Con operates via a lottery system. Once you have purchased your ticket, if you do it separately anyway, they put everybody's name into a hat and they assign you a time where you can go in and try to get a hotel. And I did not get an unrespectable time. I was 2 hours and 51 minutes in, and I was the earliest one, so it was my turn this year. As soon as I logged in, there was nothing. Not a damn thing left in their block. So I think that 2 things. One, Gen Con needs to get an even bigger block of hotels that they have reserved just for their space. And number 2, I have a feeling that this is going to be the biggest Gen Con on record. The last Gen Con that I went to was 2020. Or was it 2021? Either way, it was pretty well deserted. Most of the people had called out. There was room to walk around and kind of expand. I don't think we're going to get that this year. I think we're going to be back to asses and elbows. Everybody for themselves in a packed convention hall. They're going to top 100,000 people this year. I just don't see it going any other way. If they were all sold out. I did secure a hotel about a 30-minute drive away. That's the closest that they had. At this point, if you haven't secured lodging for Gen Con, you're down to an hour drive in and out every day, or shacking up in a seedy Airbnb or a hotel that people are probably living in full time. Let's see, what else? I've got board games. I am going through my collection and purging, which is something I've never done before. I'm not building up. I'm tearing down. So the games that aren't likely to see play, a lot of them are still sealed in box. I'm getting those listed for sale, and some of them are out of print. I am shocked at what some people... I'm not that shocked, now that I think about it. Some of them are going for a pretty good price. You get the out-of-print ones that are, desirable, and all of a sudden somebody shows up with a sealed container saying, here you go, it's your favorite game of all time. Like, if Lords of Waterdeep was out of print and I had to go buy that and somebody just had a completely brand new one, that would be awesome. So, I have to make room so that I can buy more games at Gen Con, which comes up in just another 5 months. 5 months to plan. But yeah, I think that might be part of my cycle from now on is I build these games up, I have to take them down. I still have a bunch back in there sealed in that I've never played, but I want to. Like, I just have them scheduled for the Meeples. And then, let's see, what else? Did I have anything else on my list here? Apologies. Let's see. Oh, Dinkum! Right, that's the only other thing that I'm doing lately is playing Dinkum with the Meeples every other week. It's a cozy game, basically Australia-based. Lots of fun and farming and shenanigans. So it is definitely something that I would recommend that you pick up if you have a couple 100 hours to waste. It's good that I have this limited to once every 2 weeks or I dump too much time into it. But that's it for the Meeple Minute. Back to you, Phil.
Alrighty. Thank you, Old Man Callahan, for that. Gen Con is going to be a blast this year. There's no housing blocks available. I had to get an Airbnb. Mine was actually pretty nice that I found, but it's gonna be a bit crazy getting in and out and all that stuff. So I'm still hoping that I can find a hotel at some point that is downtown and closer, but I'm holding out no hope. So we got a bit of a jaunt. It's only like 2 miles out from downtown and looks like a very nice place. So, well, that is all we have for the month. Again, I almost forgot. If you're still here and you are a patron, this Friday, the 8th, at about 8 p.m., we will have Patrons Night again. So if you are a member of our patrons, you are invited. $1 a month over on Patreon gets you into our Discord, which gets you into game nights. So yeah, come and join us. It's the best cult you could find. Anyways, we will talk to you guys later. All right. Bye.
If you like what you just saw, please support us by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more great gaming content.